Have you ever felt like your cat is still around you every day, but somehow not truly close to you anymore? They still eat in your home. They still sleep under your roof. They still appear in the same rooms you do. But their eyes seem more guarded now. Their body feels less relaxed. And the moments when they come to you on their own start happening less and less. The heartbreaking part is that a cat's trust rarely disappears all at once. It usually fades slowly through small, repeated moments that most owners never realize are causing damage. Some of the things we do look harmless. Some even come from love. But, to a cat, those same actions can slowly teach them that being near you no longer feels as safe or as comfortable as it once did. And when that feeling lasts long enough, cats do not always fight back. They do not always hiss, scratch, or run away. Sometimes they simply begin to withdraw in silence. In this video, we are going to talk about the 6 most common mistakes that can slowly make your cat lose trust in the person they once wanted to be closest to. Before we get into them, it is important to understand one thing. Cats do not build trust the way humans do. They do not care about grand gestures. They do not measure love by how much money you spend, how many toys you buy, or how often you say their name. Trust, for a cat, is built through patterns. It comes from the small experiences they repeat with you every single day. The way you touch them. The way you respond when they are unsure. The way your home feels to their nervous system. The way your presence either brings relief or tension. That is why some people can honestly love their cat and still slowly damage the relationship without realizing it. Not because they are cruel, but because they are speaking a human language in a relationship that depends on feline rules. In this video, we are going to walk through 6 very common mistakes. Forcing contact when your cat is not ready. Using punishment instead of understanding the reason behind the behavior. Creating a life that feels unpredictable and stressful. Ignoring the environmental needs that make a cat feel secure. Misreading the quiet signals your cat is constantly giving you. And finally, meeting your cat's physical needs while neglecting the emotional bond that makes trust grow. Each of these mistakes may seem small on its own, but when they happen over and over, they can change the way your cat feels in your presence. And once that shift begins, the distance between you does not always show up dramatically. Sometimes it shows up in subtler ways. A cat that no longer sleeps as close. A body that stays tense for a little longer. A glance that checks your movement before fully relaxing. A cat that still lives beside you, but no longer leans into you with the same quiet confidence. So as we go through these 6 mistakes, do not listen with guilt. Listen with honesty. Because the goal is not to blame yourself. The goal is to notice what your cat may have been feeling all along, and to understand how trust is either being weakened or rebuilt in the ordinary moments you share every day. The first mistake is forcing closeness when your cat is not ready for it. This happens more often than people realize, especially when the cat is calm, quiet, or not actively resisting. You pick them up when they were about to walk away. You keep petting because they have not swatted at you yet. You pull them into your lap because they looked comfortable a second ago. From a human point of view, it can feel harmless, even affectionate. But from a cat's point of view, the experience can feel very different. It can feel like losing control over their own body. And for cats, control matters more than many owners understand. A cat feels safest when it has the freedom to choose. The freedom to come closer. The freedom to pause. The freedom to leave. When those choices are respected, your presence starts to feel predictable and safe. But when those choices are repeatedly taken away, even in gentle ways, your cat may begin to associate you with pressure instead of comfort. This is why trust can erode even in homes where there is plenty of love. A cat does not only remember whether you meant well, it remembers how your touch felt in that moment, whether it had a choice, whether its signals changed anything. And the signals are often easy to miss if you are only watching for obvious resistance. Many cats do not go straight to scratching or biting. First, they try quieter forms of communication. A slight tail flick, ears turning sideways, skin twitching, a body that stiffens under your hand, a head turning away, a paw shifting as if they are preparing to leave. These are not small details. These are the early ways your cat says, "I am reaching my limit." When those signals are ignored again and again, your cat learns something painful. It learns that being polite does not work. That subtle communication does not protect its space. And over time, that can lead to one of two outcomes. Some cats become more defensive because they feel they have to escalate to be heard. Others become quieter and more distant because they stop expecting you to listen at all. That is why respecting boundaries is not a minor courtesy in a relationship with a cat. It is one of the clearest ways to prove that your presence is not something they need to defend themselves from. So if you want your cat to trust you more, do not focus only on how often you touch them. Focus on how safe they feel during the interaction. Let them come to you. Offer your hand and wait. Pet for a shorter time than you think is necessary. End the moment while it is still good, not after your cat has already had enough. Because to a cat, trust does not begin when you hold them close. It begins when they learn they can walk away from you, and you will still be kind. The second mistake is punishing your cat before you understand what the behavior is really saying. This is where many relationships begin to crack without the owner realizing it. A cat scratches the couch, jumps on the counter, bites during petting, or urinates outside the litter box, and the human reacts with frustration first. A loud voice, a sudden movement, a spray bottle, being shut out of the room, sometimes even physical correction. The owner thinks they are stopping a bad habit. But the cat is not learning a moral lesson. The cat is learning that you can become frightening without warning. And that changes everything. Because behavior is communication, especially in cats. What looks like defiance is often discomfort. What looks like spite is often stress. What looks like aggression may be fear, pain, overstimulation, or a nervous system that has been pushed too far for too long. Take biting during petting, for example. Many people see it as a sudden betrayal. One second the cat seems fine, and the next it bites. But in many cases, the bite was not sudden at all. The cat may have been signaling rising tension through its tail, ears, skin, posture, or breathing long before the moment escalated. The bite was simply the first signal the human could not ignore. The same is true for litter box problems. Owners often interpret this as revenge, even though cats do not think that way. A cat that stops using the litter box may be dealing with pain, fear, territorial stress, an aversion to the box itself, or a problem in the environment that has made elimination feel unsafe. If the human responds with punishment, the original problem remains unsolved, and now a second problem is added. The cat is distressed, and the person it lives with has become part of that distress. That is what makes punishment so damaging. It does not just fail to teach the lesson you intended. It teaches a completely different lesson. It teaches your cat that your voice can mean danger, that your hands can become unpredictable, that making a mistake in your presence can lead to fear instead of understanding. And once fear enters the relationship, even ordinary moments can start to feel different to your cat. They may flinch when you stand up too quickly, freeze when you walk toward them, Watch your hands more carefully. Hesitate before approaching you. Not because they stopped caring, but because some part of them is now trying to stay safe. So when your cat does something that frustrates you, pause before reacting. Ask a better question. Not, how do I stop this? But why is this happening? Is my cat in pain? Is something in the environment stressful? Did I miss an earlier signal? Is this behavior meeting a need that has no better outlet right now? Because the goal is not to win against your cat. The goal is to understand what your cat has been trying to say before the message got loud. And if this is already making you realize that some of your past reactions came from confusion, not cruelty, stay with me. Because the next mistake is even quieter. It is not about what you do in one bad moment. It is about the kind of daily life your cat is forced to adapt to, and how that quiet instability can wear trust down from the inside. The third mistake is creating a life that feels too unpredictable. Cats do not need excitement in the way humans often do. They do not need constant novelty, sudden changes, or a home that is always active and full of surprises. What they need is something much quieter and much more important. They need patterns they can trust. When meals happen at random times, when play happens only occasionally, when the house is calm one day and chaotic the next, your cat has to stay more alert than it should. Add frequent visitors, loud noises, furniture being moved, unfamiliar smells, or a carrier that only appears before something stressful, and your cat may begin to feel like life is always shifting under its feet. That kind of instability does not always create a dramatic reaction. More often, it creates a constant low level of tension. A cat that cannot predict what comes next may sleep more lightly, hide more often, groom excessively, startle more easily, seem distant for no obvious reason. To a human, these changes can look small. To a cat, they can mean that home no longer feels fully reliable. And that matters, because trust is not only about how your cat feels about you in one moment, it is also about whether your cat sees you as part of a world that feels steady or part of a world that keeps becoming overwhelming without warning. This is why routine is not a boring detail in a cat's life. It is emotional protection. A regular feeding schedule teaches your cat that its needs will be met. A familiar play ritual gives it a healthy outlet for energy and hunting instinct. A predictable way of being approached helps it relax before you even touch it. Over time, these repeated patterns tell your cat something powerful. You do not have to stay on guard all the time here. Even small habits can shape that feeling. If you always call your cat in the same soft tone before meals, that sound becomes reassuring. If you leave the carrier out as part of the normal environment instead of bringing it out only on stressful days, it stops feeling like a warning sign. If you know your cat gets overwhelmed by guests and you prepare a quiet room in advance, you are not just managing behavior. You are showing your cat that its stress matters to you. What wears trust down is often not one huge mistake, but a life that feels too uncertain for too long. A cat can adapt to many things, but adaptation is not the same as comfort. Some cats become so used to living on edge that people stop noticing how tense they really are. So if your cat seems more withdrawn, ask yourself whether the problem is not only what you do to your cat, but also the rhythm of life you are asking it to live inside. Is there enough consistency? Enough calm? Enough warning before change? Enough space for your cat to recover when the world becomes too much? Because for a cat, peace is not a luxury. It is part of what makes trust possible. The fourth mistake is believing that love by itself is enough, while the environment keeps telling your cat to stay on edge. Many people genuinely adore their cats. They buy good food, they buy toys, they pet them, talk to them, and make room for them in their lives. But affection alone does not cancel out an environment that feels wrong to a cat's body and instincts. A cat can be loved and still feel chronically unsettled in its own home. Because cats do not experience a home the way we do, humans usually think in terms of comfort and decoration. Cats think in terms of safety, distance, access, escape, and control. They want to know where they can hide if they feel overwhelmed. They want height, so they can observe without being cornered. They want scratching surfaces that let them stretch, mark, and release tension. They want litter boxes that feel clean and safe. They want food, water, rest, and elimination areas arranged in ways that do not force stress into basic daily routines. When those needs are missing, the problem is not always obvious. Your cat may still eat, still sleep, still move around the house. But underneath that surface, the nervous system may be working much harder than it should. A cat with nowhere to retreat may never fully relax. A cat with no elevated space may feel exposed all the time. A cat that has to use a litter box in a noisy or high-traffic area may begin to associate a basic physical need with vulnerability. And a cat that lives surrounded by strong smells, constant sound, or repeated interruption may start carrying tension in its body every single day. This is where owners often misunderstand the relationship. They think the cat is distant, difficult, or overly sensitive, when in reality, the cat may simply be trying to survive an environment that never quite lets it breathe. And over time, that matters deeply. Because if your cat does not feel protected in the space you control, it becomes harder for your cat to experience you as a source of comfort inside that space. You may be feeding them with love, speaking to them with love, even touching them with love. But if the world around them keeps activating stress, your presence can only repair so much. Sometimes the most caring thing you can do for a cat is not more affection. It is better design. A covered bed tucked into a quiet corner. A cat tree near a window. A scratching post placed where your cat actually wants to use it, not where it looks best to you. A litter box in a private location. Separate areas for food and water. A room where guests, children, or other animals cannot constantly follow your cat. These choices may seem small, but to a cat, they can completely change the emotional meaning of home. So if your cat seems watchful, withdrawn, or harder to connect with, do not only ask whether your cat feels loved, ask whether your cat feels supported by the environment it has to live in every day. Because sometimes a cat does not pull away from you because it lacks affection. Sometimes it pulls away because the space around it never stops asking its body to brace. The fifth mistake is misreading your cat's signals and then responding in ways that slowly make the relationship feel heavier instead of safer. A lot of people think their cat is distant simply because it does not express affection in obvious ways. It does not come when called every time. It does not always climb into their lap. It does not greet them with the kind of excitement people often expect from dogs, so they assume the cat is aloof, ungrateful, or emotionally closed off. But that is usually not what is happening at all. Cats are communicating constantly. They are just doing it in a quieter language, and when that language keeps getting overlooked, the relationship can become painfully one-sided. The cat keeps sending subtle signals. The human keeps waiting for louder ones. And in that gap, misunderstanding begins to grow. A slow blink can be trust. A tail held upright when your cat enters the room can be a warm greeting. A cat choosing to sit a few feet away from you instead of on top of you can still be choosing closeness. Even something as simple as your cat turning its head when you speak may be part of its way of acknowledging you. These moments may seem small, but to a cat, they are often the emotional fabric of connection. The problem starts when a person sees those signals as not enough, so they call the cat again. They pick it up because sitting nearby does not feel affectionate enough. They keep petting after the cat has already said it is finished. They follow the cat into the next room. They turn every quiet moment into a request for more. More response. More closeness. More proof. And that is where communication stops feeling like communication and starts feeling like pressure. This is especially damaging because many cats are incredibly polite before they are forceful. They do not begin with rejection. They begin with restraint. They look away. They shift their body. They pause. They flick an ear. They stop leaning in. And if those softer messages keep being ignored, the cat is left with only two choices: escalate or withdraw. Some cats escalate. They swat, bite, or run. Others do something much sadder. They become quieter, less expressive, less willing to initiate. They stop offering the subtle forms of trust they once gave freely, because experience has taught them that their gentle signals do not change anything. That is why this mistake can hurt a bond so deeply. It does not always look dramatic from the outside. It can happen in homes where the owner feels loving, attentive, and deeply attached. But if the cat's actual language is never understood, then even affection can start landing in the wrong place. So the next time your cat responds in a way that seems small, do not dismiss it. Stay with it. Learn its scale instead of forcing yours onto it. If your cat sits near you, notice that. If it blinks at you, return the blink. If it leans in for one brief head rub and then stops, let that moment be complete. Because trust grows when your cat feels that its quiet ways of speaking are enough. And once a cat realizes it does not have to shout, perform, or defend itself to be understood, that is when closeness starts to feel real again. The sixth mistake is the quietest one of all: meeting your cat's basic needs, but never truly building a relationship. A lot of cats are well cared for on paper. They have food, water, a clean litter box, a place to sleep, vet visits when needed. From the outside, everything looks fine. And in one sense, it is. The cat is being maintained. But being cared for is not always the same as feeling connected. Because a relationship is not built only through provision, it is built through presence. Some owners become so focused on keeping their cat healthy that they forget to become emotionally familiar. They refill the bowl, clean the box, and move through the routine, but rarely slow down enough to notice who their cat actually is. What kind of play it loves. What time of day it feels most social. Whether it prefers a voice before a hand. Whether it wants to sit beside you instead of on you. Whether it feels safest when you stay still and let it come first. And when those moments of attention never really happen, something important stays underdeveloped. The cat may know that you are the person who provides resources, but it may not fully know you as a source of comfort, understanding, or emotional safety. That is the difference between being fed and being known. Some cats live for years in the same home without ever becoming deeply bonded, not because they are cold, but because no one has consistently met them in the quiet space where trust grows. Trust grows in the small rituals. A short play session at the same time each evening. A soft greeting when you enter the room. A pause when your cat looks at you instead of immediately reaching out. A habit of noticing before demanding. A willingness to share space without always trying to control the moment. And this matters more than many people realize, because when life becomes stressful, a cat does not only rely on food or shelter, it leans on what feels familiar, what feels readable, what feels safe. If your presence has become part of that safe pattern, your cat will often recover faster, approach more willingly, and settle more easily after fear. But if the emotional bond was never really built, then even a well-cared-for cat can still feel alone inside the relationship. So if you want your cat to trust you deeply, do not only ask whether you are doing enough for its body. Ask whether you are making room for its inner life. Ask whether your cat feels recognized, not just managed. Ask whether your home includes moments where nothing is being demanded, corrected, or interrupted, and your cat gets to feel that being near you is simply peaceful. Because in the end, the strongest bond with a cat is not created by doing dramatic things. It is created when your cat learns, over time, that your presence brings steadiness, respect, and relief. And that is what this whole video has really been about. A cat's trust does not survive on love that stays inside your heart. It survives on what your cat experiences with you, again and again. In your touch, in your patience, in your routines, in the way you respond to fear, in the way you shape the world it has to live in. And the hard truth is that trust can fade quietly, long before most people notice. But the hopeful truth is that it can also be rebuilt the same way. Quietly, gently, consistently. So if some part of this video made you recognize your own mistakes, do not stop at guilt. Let it turn into attention. Let it turn into better timing, softer hands, calmer routines, and a home that asks less of your cat's nervous system. Because the most precious thing your cat gives you is not just its company. It is the moment it chooses to rest beside you without fear. And maybe that is the real question you should carry with you after this video. Is your cat merely living in your home, or does it truly feel safe enough to trust you in it?